Right now, there is a question quietly spreading through the global travel community, and it is one that nobody in Dubai's tourism industry wants to answer out loud. Is the world's most famous shopping destination starting to lose its shine? Visitors who have traveled to Dubai Mall in recent months have begun reporting something unusual. Areas that were once so packed you could barely move are now noticeably more open. Social media observations, travel blogs, and independent commentators have all started raising the same question: has something fundamentally changed in the way people are choosing to engage with Dubai's legendary retail empire? That is exactly what we are going to break down today. And the answer involves geopolitics, consumer psychology, e-commerce, and an economic model that may have reached its natural limits. Stay with me, because this story goes much deeper than a quiet weekend at the mall. Welcome to Strategic Dynamics Edge. This channel exists to decode the big economic and geopolitical shifts happening around the world and explain them in plain language. If that sounds like something you want more of, subscribe right now and hit the bell. We put out breakdowns that most channels do not touch, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Now let us get into this. Dubai Mall has long been considered the crown jewel of what economists call the world's most ambitious retail experiment. Sitting directly beneath the Burj Khalifa, the tallest structure ever built by human hands, this place was never designed to just be a shopping center. It was designed to be a statement: a $200 bottle of water, a $100 omelet, $80,000 for a Fabergé egg. These are real price tags that real people were paying year after year as a kind of performance of wealth and aspiration. The whole model was deliberately engineered to attract a very specific kind of visitor, the kind who does not just come to browse, but comes to spend, and to spend without hesitation. Tens of millions of visitors every year, restaurants with waiting lists, luxury boutiques moving serious volume. The foot traffic was legendary, and for a long time the machine ran perfectly. But some recent observations and reports are starting to suggest that something in the atmosphere has shifted. Travelers posting reviews, analysts tracking booking trends, and independent commentators watching the regional tourism data are all noticing patterns that deserve a closer look. And when you start connecting those patterns to the broader economic architecture of Dubai itself, the picture that emerges is genuinely fascinating and genuinely sobering. Before we go any further, I want to be upfront about something. This video is based on publicly available data, independent economic analysis, observable tourism trends, and credible reporting. The goal here is not to sensationalize, and it is absolutely not to attack any government, organization, or people. Dubai is a city that has achieved things that have no real comparison in the modern world. What we are examining are structural economic questions that apply to any model built around a single dominant idea, and those questions are worth asking honestly. Now, back to the story. Periods of regional uncertainty have historically had an outsized influence on tourism patterns across the Middle East. This is not a controversial observation. It is one of the most well-documented dynamics in global travel economics. The tourism industry runs entirely on confidence. When that confidence wavers even slightly, when a traveler sitting in Germany or Canada or Japan starts second-guessing whether a destination feels stable, the ripple effects are immediate. Flights get quietly rerouted. Hotel bookings get pushed back. Families that were planning a big trip to the Gulf start looking at Mediterranean alternatives instead. Spain, Greece, Portugal. These destinations are suddenly getting more attention, not because they have dramatically improved, but because they feel like the safer, more predictable choice in a moment of global uncertainty. That shift in perception, multiplied across millions of individual decisions made around kitchen tables worldwide, does not just create a bad quarter. It can fundamentally stress test an entire economic model. And here's what makes Dubai's position uniquely exposed. Unlike cities such as New York, Tokyo, or Paris, cities with enormous domestic consumer bases that keep their retail economies alive through every external shock, Dubai depends overwhelmingly on foreign visitors. The local population is simply not large enough to sustain 60-plus shopping malls. Not even remotely close. The entire system requires a continuous, high-volume inflow of international tourists who come not just to look, but to spend seriously. When analysts look at what percentage of Dubai's retail revenue is driven by foreign visitors versus residents, the number is striking. Take away that inflow, or even slow it down meaningfully, and the pressure becomes visible very quickly. Empty restaurant tables, luxury inventory sitting on shelves, high-end brands doing the math on whether their rental costs are still justified by the customer volume coming through the door. And then there's the second structural pressure, one that was building long before any external geopolitical concerns entered the picture. The global shift to e-commerce is not a trend that is coming. It already happened. Across the UAE and the wider Gulf region, online shopping has been growing at a rate that would make any traditional retailer uncomfortable. The logic is simple and almost impossible to argue with. Why spend time in traffic, search for parking, navigate crowds, and wait in checkout lines, when the same item, or often a better priced version of it, can arrive at your door the next morning with 2 taps on your phone. For everyday purchases, the mall cannot win that argument. And once people stop visiting for everyday needs, the entire foot traffic equation that makes the whole model work begins to break down. The industry response has been to pivot aggressively toward experience. Bigger cinema complexes, more dining options, live performances, indoor ski slopes, and world-class aquariums. The thinking is logical. If you cannot out-convenience an app, you out-experience it. Give people something they genuinely cannot get from a screen. And for the very top-tier destinations, places like Dubai Mall itself, with its iconic fountain and genuine landmark status, this strategy has real merit. People still come to see it, to photograph it, to experience it as a place. But here's the structural problem with that pivot. An experience is a luxury, and luxuries are the first thing that gets cut when people feel financially cautious or emotionally uncertain. You can postpone a dinner out, you can skip a show this month and catch it next time, but you cannot indefinitely delay replacing worn-out shoes or buying groceries. When malls lose their grip on necessity purchases and become purely about leisure, they become fragile in a very specific way. They become dependent on people feeling optimistic, financially comfortable, and completely at ease about where they are. The moment any of those 3 conditions wavers, discretionary visits disappear fast. This is a pattern that has played out before, most visibly in the United States over the past 2 decades. American malls were once the undisputed centers of suburban social life. Then the slow drift began. Everyday shopping moved online. Anchor stores started closing. Foot traffic declined. Landlords started cutting rents to keep tenants. Some malls recognized the shift early and reinvented themselves as genuine community destinations. Fitness centers, medical clinics, co-working spaces, entertainment complexes, those ones survived and in some cases thrived. Others did not adapt in time and became what urban planners now refer to as dead malls. Vast, echoing structures that still physically exist, but no longer serve any living economic purpose. Dubai is nowhere near that extreme, but the early structural signals that precede that kind of decline are worth understanding clearly, because understanding them is the only way to respond to them intelligently. The deepest issue is this: Dubai built its urban identity almost entirely around consumption. In most major cities, people leave home to go to parks, public squares, street markets, stadiums, community centers. In Dubai, where summer temperatures routinely exceed 45 degrees Celsius, most of those outdoor options are not realistic for the majority of the year. The mall stepped in and filled every single one of those social functions. It became the park, the town square, the community hub, the entertainment venue, all wrapped together under one enormous air-conditioned roof. That made it genuinely indispensable, but indispensable to a very specific population, primarily the millions of expatriate workers and international tourists who cycle through the city. Build your entire model around that population. And every external variable that affects their willingness or ability to show up becomes a direct threat to the system. So here's where things actually stand. In the short term, there is real reason for measured optimism. External pressures ease, regional confidence stabilizes, tourists return. The biggest, most iconic destinations absorb the pressure and recover, but the medium and long-term structural questions are not going away regardless of what happens next quarter. The oversupply of retail space relative to realistic demand is a real, documented concern among analysts. The permanent shift in consumer shopping behavior is not reversing. And the dependence on foreign visitor volume is not a peripheral detail of Dubai's economy. It is the central load-bearing element of the entire structure. What we are watching unfold in Dubai is not simply a tourism story or a retail story. It is a story about the risks that come with building an entire economic identity around one dominant idea. When that idea is working, everything works seamlessly. When it comes under simultaneous pressure from multiple directions, shifting consumer behavior, global uncertainty, regional perception, the vulnerabilities become visible very quickly. So I want to ask you directly, do you think Dubai's mall economy can successfully adapt to the next decade of changed consumer behavior and global uncertainty? Or is this the beginning of a deeper structural rethink that goes well beyond one difficult season? Drop your honest answer in the comments right now. I genuinely read them, and this kind of discussion makes the channel better for everyone. If this breakdown gave you something real to think about, share it with one person in your circle who follows economics or global travel. That single share genuinely helps this channel reach more people. Like the video, subscribe if you are not already, and I will see you in the next deep dive on Strategic Dynamics Edge.